You just said you just want to be happy. Look back, because it's funny. Now I'm looking at these notes, because this is what Beneath is really about. Like, you come in, like, try not to get emotional, but like, you come in and we immediately start talking about real stuff, like real life. Because it's not this Sikwitit, the producer, like, which we could list all these accomplishments and all of these artists that you work with. And now it's like, I just really want to be happy. And it's so funny because you're right, we're all in this pursuit of this dream, but the self-reflection is like, am I really happy? So it's like hearing you say, like, I just want to be happy. In the years now, it seems like me asking you, tell me about the beginning of the birth of the dream. It's still important, but do you think you were happy during all that time?
Yes, I was.
Because it was your passion.
It was, yeah. Like, obviously, I'm not going to pursue anything I'm not excited about,
Of course.
And so the early stage, that ignorance is bliss, is always good at the beginning because you don't know what you're really getting yourself into. You just know you want to, like, aggressively and passionately pursue what you've always wanted to do. So when you're in there, like, you just don't realize what's gonna come, right? And so, initially it's like the waiting, right? It just is like, oh man, like, I want to get on, I want to
The
get
hunger.
right. Well, well, it's the waiting too. It's like, you know, you've got some opportunities brewing, but you're not getting calls back. You're not, right? There's that part of it, and then there's the aspect of, like, the suffering, not having money, not being able to pay bills, not being able to eat, like
real living stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Lights off, rent due.
Which you went through.
Definitely, yeah. No.
And we're talking wasn't that a couple of years?
Yeah, like my first from 2013 into 2015, like I was constantly like almost 4 months behind in rent, and constantly with my landlord trying to work through that, you know what I mean?
Work through
there
that.
was time, like almost every month my lights would get shut off for 3 or 4 days, you know what I mean? Like, and I'd be scrounging money trying to figure out, like, how am I going to make this work? Yeah, and it got to a point where I started realizing what this really was. And I started really, honestly, you know, you look at it as a hobby at first. You're like, oh, I love this. This is just like what I love to do. But at some point I had a reality check. I was like, this is a business. And I have to treat it like a business because I got to make money. I'm suffering bad over here. Like, I love what I do, but I can't keep doing it if I don't figure out how to make money off of it and get it to that next level. So you figure that part out. You start working through the business aspect of it. And then you start realizing how the industry works. And all that is just not fun all the time. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of heartache, a lot of disappointment, a lot of, like, you come in idea of how people are and creatives are and how this should work, right? How you want to collaborate and kumbaya with other creatives, and then you just get to a point where it's like, wait a minute, not everybody's like this. It's almost, it checks you, like, because I feel like there's been moments where I have to check my moral code and try to stay true to who I am.
Taking my shoes off for this. I'm serious. I cannot. This is so good. Like,
no, I mean, it's true because, like, you expect other people to be like you, right? And to operate like you and to treat you like you treat them, and it just doesn't. It doesn't
even
happen.
in a cutthroat business of entertainment. Of
course,
you're still expecting that same element,
right? And so through all of that, right? Like, I started off happy. But as time goes on, you start realizing, okay, how do you separate the business and the emotional part of it? You know, people say that all the time, right? Like, separate your feelings from the business. And when you do a business like this and you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to take something that, especially for artists are so attached to their art.
Yes.
And then we have to turn it into a business to separate that is just crazy to us. That's crazy thinking, right? It's like, what? Like, no, this is my art. I value this, right? Like, so to get on this other side of things, it's a hard mix. And they say it all the time, like, not everybody's built for this, and I agree with it. It's not. I got to check my situation and myself on the regular because I want to always be true to who I am. And I've at times found myself, like, leaning towards the opportunity more than to who I am as a person, right? And
Which it's
think
hard not to.
where you're at in your career, your life, when you have moments like 2020 and 2021 for me, and you're reflecting and you're like, was that really worth it? You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather just be me and be happy that I'm me, you know? So it's a struggle, it's a challenge. I'm happy now because I'm realizing that. Like, to me, growth is everything for me, right? Like, I feel anybody who's seen my trajectory, it's been a steady growth, and that's what I love about myself, right? I'm always looking and finding ways to grow. So when I look at where I'm at now, I may not be as accoladed and as big as I want to be, but there's still growth. So to me, I'm happy because of that. And I've identified, like, listen, man, you got to approach this a little different and move different. And I have, like, the way I want to do business moving forward, still aggressive, still cool and creative like I always do, but I just want to be really more thoughtful towards the people I work with, myself, and make sure that we're at the forefront of what we do instead of like constantly chasing people, chasing opportunities, because you get in this hunt and it's just like never ending. You know what I mean? It's never ending. And I know that I'm valuable enough. I can bring so much to the table that I can operate on my own without having to depend on other people. You know what I mean? Like, when I say other people, I mean like the people that we think are going to help us get to that next level.
Like, if I could just get to this person,
Right.
it would all be okay.
Right. And it's you get to that person, you realize you got to get to this person, and you realize you got to and it's just a never ending thing. So yeah.
It's like enjoying the process is really the key.
For sure.
Like, not always living for that place out here, but enjoying the process.
And I always have, don't get it wrong. Like,
you have, because you know what I'm reflecting on? I'm reflecting on your story about how you were always about collaboration instead of competition.
Right.
That was at the very beginning.
Right.
You know, like, you were always about the bigger picture, and like you said, kind of living from this space instead of what the industry pushes on you.
Yeah, you know, for that, don't get it twisted. That first like 9 months to a year, I was super competitive. So that I'm the guy, you know what I mean? And but
I love to hear that too. Yeah, there's
know,
still that part.
there
Hello,
is.
your name is Sikwitit.
Of course, right? So there's that aspect of me, but over time, you know, and when I came in, mind you, when I made my introduction here in Dallas, I was like, I'm more than positive I'm better than everybody else, right? Like, but I've always walked around with that confidence.
Well, you kind of proved that you were with all the competitions that you won over and over.
I mean, but still, that's just like one section of what producing is, right? Like, you look at guys like Quincy Jones, Timbaland, Pharrell, like those guys are killing it. You know what I mean? Like, those guys are really on another level. But I think through all that, you know, obviously that kind of helped my confidence even more. But I realized that a lot of people were just as talented as me, and a lot of people had the same goals. I'd never been around so many creatives at one time, and all these new producers that I was meeting, and I was like, wow, they're just like me
on their craft,
for
just
sure,
as much as you.
Yeah, and not only that, as I also felt like people in our community were taking advantage of producers, and so I didn't want that. I felt like I want to do something for producers by a producer who understands. And that's what I did. Everything that I did moving forward after that was like trying to bring people along, trying to open up the community to working with one another and helping each other. And, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Everybody has their own path. It's expected to be perfect and kumbaya, but the idea that we've had moments where we've gotten together to do some really cool things has been amazing to me, right? And those have been big parts of who I am, and they've been an attribute to like my career. You know, when we get together and have events like Sound Social, or we get together and do a documentary, or, you know, stuff like that, it's like us making a statement together saying, hey, we're here, we exist, and we love creating, you know what I mean? And that's all I've ever wanted to do. I've been fortunate to get in the position to where I do get exposure on a national level from time to time. And I can't think of one opportunity that I didn't utilize to highlight us to some capacity, right? Whether it's with KERA and they're doing national spots with us on TV and radio stations all over the country, and I'm working in the studio with Brown Royal and Freddie Bruno and Bobby Sessions, right? Like, I didn't have to do that session, but I did because I wanted to show like what we do. When we do stuff like with the documentary, I didn't have to. I could have gone and done my own documentary for me, right? But
Yeah.
what does that do? You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to do something, and we always want to come back to the city, right? Like, everybody's got their unique culture here when it comes to music. I've traveled to New York, I've traveled to Atlanta, all over the place, and there's nothing like Dallas. And it got to a point with our producer community that everywhere I go is like, oh, you're from Dallas. Ooh, Dallas got some crazy producers down there. There's something in the water down there. And I really think that was us, like, trying to make a statement and say, like, hey, we're here. And to be a part of that for me was just like amazing.
So what because you're working with Airbit, you're still in the business aspect of it.
Right.
How do you see producing has changed since you've got into
For
it?
sure.
Where do you see the future of that going for you?
I'm gonna say some things, and you know what? People could take them for how they are. Um, Producing has become a big collaborative thing, more so than ever, right? Which I love. But we're getting into like a new era of technology.
Yes.
And you know, Airbit is an amazing company. Like, we help produce. We're a producer platform that helps producers create a place to go and make money. You know what I mean? Sell your beats, expose your craft,
So
and
they
make
don't
a
have to be
living.
off with their lights for
Exactly.
3 or 4 days. You
Exactly.
know, it's the irony of it for you.
Yeah.
It's like now you're able to do this on a mass
Of course.
level compared to when you began.
I have a buddy named Fetty Knox. He lives out in Austin, and he asked me about Airbit. I got him on Airbit and got him involved. And this dude is like, he just sent me all his PayPal notifications yesterday, and easily was making about almost $1,000 like in one day. You know what I mean? So I was like, that's really cool.
That is awesome.
And so we're in that place, but I also feel like it's evolving to something else. You know, I think AI technology is going to be a big role in how production is viewed. I'm looking at websites now that an artist can bypass and go create their own beats. So I think there's going to be room for growth in the music community and creative space for everybody. But I think producers, we got to really find a way to stay at the forefront of the change and figure out how we fit into that. And so that's the joy of me working with Airbit. That was a big reason why I got involved with Airbit, because I wanted to understand why tech companies are moving and operating the way that they are. And I get to see a lot of that stuff firsthand. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm not deterred by it by any means, but I am trying to figure out, how do I communicate this to the community, because I want them to be aware of like changes coming, be prepared to do that.
Because a producer will always be needed. I was like reading about your definition of being a producer and how it really is, you're the one that's putting the whole message together.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you're seeing the macro and bringing it together for the public.
And I noticed that in collaborating, a lot of producers, because it goes from 1 or 2 producers to like 4 or 5 producers, and most people take a back seat, a lesser role, but we need to understand, like, we need to push for that bigger role to understand that concept. Is like, understand how this works, understand how it should be put out and how it's communicated, because every piece of music, somebody interprets it a certain way, and we're responsible for getting that music out, right? So I like the idea of being a producer that sees a song from the beginning to the end, right? Rather than just throwing some drums or throwing a melody to contribute. And so I think if producers could take that mentality, owning it, right, to help with the process of putting it out and putting it together, I think we'll be better off, because that true meaning of a producer goes beyond just assisting with the sound or so.
Right. So this is a perfect way to kind of wrap it up. So it was like, I was thinking as I was like reading about you and just knowing that we were going to have a conversation, and then seeing your posts and thinking about what producer meant. And it's like, I really feel like, so a producer puts the whole message together to give it to people. And I just feel like you have so much, like, it's almost like you have the ability to tell people how to I don't want to say put their lives together, but like, I think you're going through this change where it's like so much bigger than just music producing. It's like life producing. Does that make sense? You know, like, I just see your posts and it's like, and when you came in, how you were saying like going through changes, and I just think you have so much to give to people, and I don't. This is why I wanted to do the interview. So it's like, yes, delve into the mind of a music producer, but dive into like the ability to really produce your own life, because you've really done that. Like you have made something out of nothing, you
Yeah.
know, and now you're on this.
It's a like I feel blessed, and I do feel like I have a greater purpose, right? Than just music. But the big thing for me is I want people to understand that I don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't. All of it's been by the seat of fly. Like, don't get me wrong. I've had experiences in my life that helped me to make my decisions, but
And have achieved a lot of things
right,
that haven't been
right.
possible for other
And
people.
I have some answers, right? But I don't have it figured out. Like I had a plan, and everything that has happened is not gone according to plan. You know, but it's me maneuvering and understanding how to. It's kind of like what I was saying, is helping producers understand how to maneuver with what's coming.
Yes.
And I just feel like I always have had the foresight to see things before time,
That's what I'm talking
right?
about.
And then maneuver around that or in it or however. But I don't want, and I think that's always been like the biggest thing. People have always told me that, like, you got it figured out. You've been doing it. And I'm like, I don't have it figured out. Like, I'm trying to figure it out. And I want people to know that, because I don't, this is not real.
And you understand my question wasn't, or I wasn't insinuating that you were
Right,
perfect.
right. No, I didn't take it like
no,
that.
No, God, but just that you're on that path of showing, like, I think about your thankful post. That is real life. Like when you're like, you have two choices: to be despairing or choose to be thankful.
Right.
That's like a way to produce your life to get you to where you want to be.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah.
Like those offering, like using your influence in those areas is more powerful than you'll ever know.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I talked to my mom, and she's 66, and I said, what do you feel like you've learned the most? And she always told me that, she's like, the older I get, the more I realize I don't have anything figured out.
Ooh.
And when she tells me that, I'm like, dang, like if my mom says that, the one person I've always felt that should say something, right? And but again, like I want people to understand, I just took my confidence, I took what I knew I was good at, and I operated and moved in those areas.
Ooh.
And I think that's important. Like,
So important.
nobody's gonna have it all figured out
Yeah.
ever. But if you can identify the things that you're great at,
Yeah.
and move in those things are gonna naturally shine, because that's who you
Right.
naturally are.
Yes.
So that's more of like what I've done, because I got tons of freaking flaws. You know what I mean? Tons of flaws, tons of things that I'm not great at. But the things that I am good at, those are the things that I decided to, you know, to move in. And fortunately, it was the right decision. So
thank you so much for joining me today. Beneath, you went beneath. Hey, we have to have a part 2 though.
I'm down.
Because there's more things to go. But,
yeah, I'm down.
So, thank you so much for joining Beneath. And thank you, viewers. We appreciate you for joining Beneath, and we will see you next time.